Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as a strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us here. I'm Wiyag Mofwegwe on Global Television, and this is Global Morning. It turns out it's a Monday, first working day of the week, and just another week following the 3 elections across 3 different states, across 3 different geopolitical zones of our great country, Nigeria. These 3 off-grid elections have again tested our resolve as a people to conduct elections that are seen, are judged to be free, fair, transparent, credible, and equitable. Since Saturday, question marks have been raised over our electoral process in this country as a nation, whether it's in the campaign or in the way INEC itself conducts its affairs, whether it's in the way political parties, their candidates, their agents and supporters carry themselves, and then ultimately the outcome of these elections. Now, speaking of outcome, we understand that Imo and Kogi are now in the bag, in a manner of speaking. What that means is the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has declared Governor Hope Uzodinma winner of the election in Imo State. What that simply means again is he's returning to office for his second term of 4 years. In Kogi State, Usman Ododo of the APC has also been declared by INEC winner of that election. However, that of Bayelsa is still being awaited. At about dinner time yesterday, we had 2 local government results being inspected. All else equal, Nigerians believe the results will all be in today for Bayelsa State, and a winner will be announced accordingly. However, going forward, we can't take our eyes away from the similarities between the election held in Kogi and the one of Imo State. Of course, the APC has won both states. That's clear. Another thing that's very clear is that these 2 elections have been trailed by controversies, like I would always say, question marks over both conduct of these elections. However, it's also very clear that there's no election, whether in Nigeria or overseas, where you don't have people challenging or questioning the process that has produced a particular winner. But let's not also take our eye away from the violence that has characterized these elections. We understand a young man was killed in the case of Kogi, allegedly in a bid to snatch a ballot box. Some people said he had actually picked up a beaver's device and smashed it on the ground in a bid to influence the election in favor of a particular interest. The sad news is he was shot dead. Now we're told he leaves behind a wife and 2 children. So again, that paints a clear picture of election thuggery that Nigeria has been dealing with for decades. But we also want to talk about how that this election is a litmus test, or has become a litmus test for us, not just for INEC, to question our resolution as to whether or not we're ready to conduct elections that will be free, fair, and credible, and what lessons we're taking away from these to apply to future elections. Of course, on the show today, we also want to take a look at the papers for you and then give you an insight into where the news is heading. As expected, elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa are flooding. I mean, stories around those elections are flooding the papers this morning. We're taking a quick break now. When we return, you'll meet my guests and we'll get talking full-fledged. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggle with ASIS strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Later on the show, but first my guest is Chief Chibuna Obawike. Is a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, that's the APC. He's a businessman and a social commentator. He has several other feathers added to his cap, but time will fail us to go into all of those. Again, you were here sometime last week. I want to say thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Yes, your party has been adjudged victorious by INEC in Kogi and Imo. What does that say about this process?
I thank, first of all, let me congratulate my governor for emerging victorious in this election. The election was keenly contested and he coasted home to victory. Governor Hope Uzodinma, the governor of my state, Imo, I congratulate you for the deserved victory. You worked hard for it. I also wish to use this medium to congratulate Usman Ododo, our Kogi state governor-elect. He worked so hard too. And I congratulate my party for working so hard to win the election. The elections in Imo and Kogi, their results have been declared, and it shows that the candidate that worked more got the victory. That's all I can say, and I thank my party for doing more to secure the victory.
I mean, I did expect that actually, but then let's talk about the process itself. You know, it's very interesting and easy for a political party that has carried the day to sound like this, but people have complained. I mean, non-partisan people who have no partisan interest, they are not in any political party, they are not vying for, they're not even supporting any candidate per se. They've said, look, the violence that follows our election, that trails our election, it's alarming. Should we just go home happy that our candidate has won? Now, we're not concerned about how to check, how to curtail violence in election?
The violence cut across all the parties that contested in the election. The last time I featured on your program, I did say that the political actors and their supporters are the ones that should be schooled on what they should do to ensure that our elections are violence-free. The laws are there to be obeyed. The security agencies have a role to play in ensuring that the laws are enforced to curtail violence in our elections. It might not stop completely, but to curtail it. So if all hands are on deck to ensure that the processes that have been put in place, the laws that have been put in place are implemented properly for the benefit of the generality of Nigerians, the violence will be reduced drastically. It is not my party, it is not the party B or the other party. All the parties are involved. So they should be schooled. All the actors should be schooled on what should be done to ensure that our elections are violence-free. One thing again, we should know that all over the world, especially in Africa, partisan contests are not devoid of violence. Just check African countries where partisan democracy is practiced. The elections are not devoid of violence. But what we should do as the society is dynamic and we are evolving, is to ensure that we enforce the laws. The law enforcement agents play their normal role, the due role that is their responsibility to ensure that laws are enforced to curtail the violence associated with elections.
As we have always come to see, INEC had series of meetings with critical stakeholders, political parties, their candidates, security agents, even National Union of Road Transport Workers for obviously the purpose of logistics. Would you say, when you look at how these two elections, Kogi and Imo, have turned out, that those efforts, those investments paid off?
To some extent, it paid off. But you know that when there is violence in one place, it is usually hyped. Like, let me take my state, for instance.
Which is Imo?
Imo State. We have 27 local governments. The violence recorded are quite infinitesimal, but they are overhyped to rub off on all the local governments. There was no violence in the entire 27 local governments. I don't know whether you get me.
Right.
And the 305 electoral wards. No. The violence maybe took place in isolated areas. but it has been overhyped, to rub off on others. The INEC's, education and enlightenment paid off because it was not, the violence that was recorded wasn't on a global scale. It was not on a macro scale. If such education should be sustained, I believe it will pay off as we progress in our democratic journey.
Your state is interesting because your governor, Hope Uzodinma, actually has sought a second term in office, which he has now got on account of INEC's declaration. But that's not the same with Kogi, where the governor is outgoing and another gentleman now has been declared the winner of that election. I want us to talk about the influence of outgoing governors on the outcome of elections, especially where, of course, they have their own anointed candidates, like Kogi, as we see.
Well, it has become the norm in Nigeria, in our Nigerian political space. Outgoing governors.
Is that a good thing? That norm, is it a good thing?
I would not say it is a good thing or it is a bad thing. It depends on the person, the supposed successor. You look at his character, his personality, his pedigree. Does he possess the quality? Does he possess the governorship ability and capability to run things, for the betterment of the states? That is what should be looked at. Not whether the outgoing governor nominated him, that kind of thing. But if the person possesses the charisma, the character, the vision, the passion, and the ability to deliver the dividends of democracy to the states, to his constituents, that should be what we should focus on.
But has always been the case? Has always been the motivation for wanting to anoint a candidate?
Well, I am a politician.
Right.
That to the considerable extent has been the motivation, so that you sustain the legacy of the outgoing government, especially if the outgoing government has performed well. The person that should succeed you should be the person that should sustain your legacy and build on what you have, the foundation you've laid. If there are areas that improvement should be made, he will make the improvements. Then other areas that nothing should be done, he introduces his own policy that will be for the betterment of the generality of the state.
I'm asking that now because, you see what has happened in Rivers State between Wike, the former governor of Rivers State, and now his godson, political godson, as they call him, Governor Fubara. This is a governor who was sworn in on the 29th of May. By October, the public had come to know that there was serious rift between both of them. Even though they call themselves father and son now in public, but it is still clear that there's bad blood between both of them. Is that also about sustaining legacy, or is about just retaining what they call structures, within your political space?
In every human institution, there are bound to be disagreements between husband and wife, amongst children, siblings, and amongst friends. So that they have disagreement or whatever should not be taken out of context. There are bound to be disagreements, and they will also agree. So that should not be taken out of context, or will build a hill out of a rat mole of the problem.
Yeah, I want us to talk about process once again. When we have election in this country, whether it's off-grid like we have seen in these 3 states, or a general election cycle, we shut down the country for one entire Saturday. In some cases, we are not even done, so we'll move elections again to maybe another Saturday. Look at states like Kogi, for example. Now we're hearing that they still have to conduct some election again next Saturday, which is 18th of this month. This is costing Nigeria so much. Just see how much we spent to elect one man to run a state. Is that not counterproductive for us as a country?
It is not counterproductive. Our democracy is evolving.
Are we evolving fast enough?
Within the peculiarity and the situation we found ourselves, we are evolving. It will not happen overnight. We will get there. When we will not shut down the state, we will not shut down the country for an election. We will get there. We are evolving. We are developing. Let's give ourselves time. We will get there. Our people want everything to be done overnight, everything to be correct overnight. In a human society run by imperfect humans, it can't happen like that. We're imperfect humans. So you don't expect perfection or perfectness from an imperfect person. It's only God that is perfect that can decree a thing and it will come to pass immediately. Humans, it is not like that. It's a gradual process. We will get there.
I want us to talk about internals, that is internal politics, I mean, within political parties now, all right? We've seen how some parties have had issues with selection process, who eventually emerged the flag bearer or the candidate of that party. And we've also seen how that now stretches into litigation after election and so on and so forth. We've seen that in Kogi in particular, for example. How do we also surmount this kind of challenge? Because the good book says a house divided against itself cannot stand. So how do we deal with that so that political parties can get it right internally and then before they come on the stage to advance their candidates?
Genuine patriotism. Genuine patriotism. If the political actors are patriotic enough to know that it is Nigeria that is the issue. I want to defend Nigeria. I want to, work for Nigeria. I want to defend my state. I want to work for my state and not for myself. That is when the proper democratization of the political process among the political parties will come to play. But when it is individualism that is coming to play, me and myself, my interest, will continue to have problem. So I implore the political actors and the leaders to imbibe the spirit of genuine patriotism. Know that you are holding a position in trust for the country or for your state, and ensure that the best is done for the country and for your state. That is when we will make the needed progress.
I asked that question because there's a palpable concern about internal democracy, all right? But more importantly, Nigeria is said to be a country where you have strong men and weak institutions, that it should be the other way around. In political parties, it's pretty much the same thing. Across political parties, it will appear you have one person or a couple of individuals who seems to own, as it were, the party. They have the last word. They have the final say. So until those persons get you anointed, until they give you their say-so, you go nowhere. So the party itself is not robust and vibrant enough to run on autopilot. Is that not the problem for our political process?
It is not. In every political party, be it in Nigeria, in Africa, or in the Western world, there are party stakeholders. It is in every partisan institution or partisan setup. There are the stakeholders. The major stakeholder, the party belongs to everybody that is a member of the party. But there are stakeholders, in the party that takes decisions and, does everything for the smooth running and for the betterment of the party. There is no political party in the world where political interest does not come to play. You push your interest, I push my interest. That's why we have negotiations, we have lobbying. You lobby and I lobby. If I lobby more than you, I will get the support. So I lobby for support, you lobby for support. If I succeed in securing the support of the majority, I am given the ticket. So, but all I implore our political parties is to ensure that in the conduct of our party primaries, let there be proper democratization of the process, so that even if I lobby, you lobby, I get it. You know that I secured my ticket free and fair and credibly. There will not be rancor, there will not be bitterness. But humans being who they are, there is nothing you will do in this world to satisfy everybody. One who has made up his mind that I must run for an election, and he discovered that I've been able to lobby more than him and secure the ticket, chances are that he will stoke tension. He will instigate crisis. It is part of human element in a partisan political process. So, in as much as the political parties will try as much as they can to democratize the process of party primaries and things, we should not take away the fact that there are some people who will still feel disgruntled and want to rock the boat, no matter how free and fair the process turns out to be.
As of today, I mean, with all you have seen, I'm sure you have also followed elections in this country since 1999.
Yeah.
Does Nigeria look like a country that is absolutely ready for electoral process?
Absolutely. Nigeria is serious and desirous of
enthroning. With all of these infrastructure deficits?
We are growing. That's why I say we are evolving. We are growing. It will not happen overnight. Remember where we are coming from and where we are going. Look at the political trajectory. We need to, attune our psyche to accept the reality on the ground now. So as we educate ourselves and sensitize ourselves on the need to imbibe the democratic processes, it will not happen overnight. It's like a student who is in school. from Form 1 to Form 2 to 3, what he did, the mistakes he made in Form 1, he will not repeat it in Form 2. The mistakes he made in Form 3, he will not repeat it in Form 4. As he progresses in his education, he improves. The same thing we are experiencing. We will get there. We will get there. It will not happen overnight. We want everything to happen in the Western world, it doesn't happen overnight. It took them time for them to get to where they are. We in Nigeria are over 60 years old. Yes, a 60-year-old. And we have made progress to get to this level. The countries, the Western world we are using to compare ourselves, some of them are over 200 years old. And they have, lived with the democratic experiment and processes. They have imbibed it. We are learning the curve, and we'll get there.
There's a case, some alleged case of a policeman trying to snatch a ballot box during this election. And now the police authorities have said an investigation has started to determine, first of all, if this man is a bona fide police officer, and then to determine the circumstances around this allegation overall. Can we use that as a basis to have a conversation about the pivotal role of security agencies in our election beyond just being around key figures on election day? Even though we know prior to the election, the IG had announced a recall, of policemen, orderlies attached to politicians. Are we in a good place with regards to security issues around elections?
We are in a good place. Every institution has its bad eggs. In the general human society, we have the good, we have the bad. In our security agencies, they have performed creditably well, but the bad eggs amongst them are painting them black, which is not good. They should do more to sensitize their men on how to conduct themselves on during elections, and to ensure that they enforce the law. In my opening remarks, I said that the security agencies, should do more to ensure that the laws, our electoral laws, are enforced creditably, enforced properly, to ensure that we have a credible, free and fair elections. The authorities should sensitize their men more. They should try as much as they can, using their internal checks and balances, to fish out those unscrupulous elements among them. And those people should not be deployed for electoral matters, because they rubbish the laudable works that the security institutions are doing for a credible election. Those bad eggs among them should not be deployed for electoral matters. And when they feed them out, they should discipline them.
Let's talk about financial inducements, which some people now call vote buying. How do we address that? Because you politicians, we are told, are the ones who deliberately and systematically impoverish the people, so you can continue to hand them a piece of fish rather than giving them the tools they need to fish for themselves and ultimately become independent, because every election cycle you want to find a way to manipulate them in your interest.
It is not true. It is not true. The society we live in. It is said that a society gets the kind of leadership it wants.
And that's the case of Nigeria, isn't it?
I am coming. It is the society we live in. I want to answer your question by giving an illustration. If your brother is appointed a minister of the Federal Republic or a commissioner in your state, and he serves the way he's supposed to be, serves the state genuinely, lived on his salaries and nothing to add. Let me just use that language. And he comes back to your village. While serving, there is no, you cannot see any improvement on his life and as per the way he's living. And after serving, he comes back, no house in the village, no improvement on his status. Will your people accept him?
I think I leave that for my people to
I'm sorry. That is the situation Nigeria has found himself. In 1979, we saw governors that served without having a house. They served and they made sure they dispensed democratic dividends to their people. And their people were happy. I don't want to mention their names, because most of them are late. They served without having a house of their own. But with that thing happen today in Nigeria, it is the Nigerian society that is the problem. They demand so much from you. Look at our election. We play money politics in Nigeria. When they don't get money from you, they don't give you their votes. No matter the good work you have done in that state, they will say, give us our own. And when they collect that money, they forget the fact that they have sold their votes. They have sold their rights. We have been sensitizing people, collecting money from politicians to cast votes for them. is detrimental to the deliverance of democratic dividends to you when the person finally emerges, secures the seat. Why not vote for people based on their antecedents, based on who they are, based on the program they have for the people, based on what you know, how you know the person, and what you know the person to do, instead of demanding money? It is the society that demands the money. And in politics, I said the other time that it is war by other means. When you are going for war, you prepare yourself, you arm yourself very well. So whatever it will take you to win the war, you will make sure you win the war.
In the context of Nigeria, when politicians, I mean, you made that statement again when you were here last week. I'd heard the president, even prior to the election, President Bola Tinubu talk about that, saying power is not served a la carte. All right, if power is not served a la carte, what does that mean in the context of Nigeria? Because most times what that seems to mean in practical sense is being aggressive, being violent, taking it by force, by any means whatsoever. Isn't that what we interpret it to mean in Nigeria?
No. It's not taking it by violence, taking it by force, no. You should sell yourself and your programs to the electorate. There is what I call saturated campaign. Saturate the space with your campaign, with your programs, meet your people, talk to them, use every forum to appeal to the people, canvass for votes. I don't know whether you get me. And by the time you say one thing over and over again, it will sink in the people. They will buy it. You understand what I mean? It is not going by force to grab it. But if it requires force all over the world, power, political power, if it requires grabbing it by force, not by violence, not by killing, but by force, force does not necessarily mean using arms, ammunition, fighting or whatever. No. If it requires force to get the power, you get the power, but not resorting to violence. All over the world.
Yeah, let's talk about the Electoral Act 2022. We know that was supposed to have been signed in 2019. It delayed, but they say delay is not denial. Has the Electoral Act, a very vital piece of legislation, all right, helped our electoral process? Has it made it better in any way?
It has. The Electoral Act, the document as it is, has no problem. It is its implementation that is the problem.
So who's to blame for that lag in implementation?
The political actors and the electoral umpire. They should come together. And the security agencies, all those that have one role or the other to play in the implementation of the Electoral Act, should work to ensure that the Electoral Act is implemented. The document has no problem. It is the implementation that is the issue. Like now, INEC has provided BVAS machine. The incident that we saw happen during the election, somebody went and took the BVAS machine and smashed. Was it INEC's fault? It was not INEC's fault. The machine is there to do its work for it to be used for the election. Let the implementation of the act be done properly and appropriately for the betterment of Nigeria and credible election. It is the implementation that is a problem. All the agencies that are involved should come together to ensure that the act is implemented the way it should be for a credible and free, fair election.
With all the efforts we have made so far, it's still very evident that elections are far from ideal in terms of credibility, transparency, equity, and so on and so forth. What more should Nigerians and indeed the authorities be doing to further advance our electoral process in such a way that it will be sterling and become an example for even other countries, particularly within the African continent?
Orientation. We should reorientate ourselves. Continuous civic education on how elections should be conducted. Let there be massive orientation and civic education about our elections and the processes, so that people will know what the law says, what if the penalties are if you run foul of the law, and what is demanded of us as citizens to ensure that the law is implemented and to guarantee a credible election. Orientation is the issue.
We understand that there's some threshold, some benchmark for spending, election spending. Yeah. But we've seen politicians flagrantly flout that provision of the law. How do we also deal with that?
Let me tell you, I want to be as factual and pragmatic as possible.
As somebody who has seen both sides of the coin.
Thank you very much. That threshold is not realistic. It's not pragmatic. Our elections in Nigeria are very expensive. For a national election, we have 176,846 polling units. We have 8,809 electoral wards. We have 774 local governments. We have 36 states and FCT. How much do you require for a particular polling unit? Let's say you are spending 2,000 naira in a polling unit by 176,846. How much will it translate to? So that threshold is not realistic.
But what are we spending this money to do, by the way? For the political party?
You must pay your party agents.
Right.
You must pay your party agents. You must provide for logistics for your people. Because at the polling unit, you have an agent. At the local government collection center, you have an agent. And in most cases, not one agent. At times, you have about 2-3 polling unit representatives in a polling unit. And you must pay them. If you are paying them 5,000 naira by 3, 15,000 naira in a polling, you know that kind of. So the capping, the financial capping, should be as pragmatic as possible. Let it not be superfluous, no, and let it not be hypothetical. Let's do something that is workable.
At this point in time, there are people who have argued that one of the things we must do fundamentally to, if you like, rework or re-engineer our electoral process is to ensure that going forward, the president does not have the latitude to appoint INEC chairman. Does that make political sense? I mean, dispassionately, not as a politician.
In advanced democracies, it's the president that appoints the head of the electoral umpire. I keep referring to the fact that patriotism, genuine patriotism, is the bedrock of any success in any given society. That the president, prior to this time and our laws, it is the president that appoints because the electoral umpire, the agency, is under the presidency. So you will not take away the power from the president. It's the Mr. President that will appoint the person. I want to give you an instance. Former President Goodluck Jonathan said when he appointed Professor Tahiru Jega, he doesn't know, he has never met him for once. Yeah. But he appointed him the INEC chairman. So it is genuine patriotism that is the issue, not who appointed. It is the powers of the president to appoint who we head INEC. So if you are clamoring that power should be taken away from the president, you are not being sincere, you are not being genuine. What if you become president tomorrow? When we are saying things, let us say it for posterity. Let us say it futuristically, not because of it serves my interest now. No.
As we begin to wind down, let's go back to your state, Imo, right? Yeah. The Southeast has been a region of concern for Nigerians over time because not just the fact that the state has, the region has 5 states, but this is a region that is very crucial to the progress and even the success and, of course, the survival of Nigeria. It's an economic hub for a region. However, Imo State in particular has been some sort of flashpoint in terms of criminality. Every time you talk about unknown gunmen in the Southeast, it's either Anambra or Imo. At the point, it became more of Imo States. Governor Hope Uzodinma, your governor that you're very proud of, has been in the saddle for virtually 4 years, and now he has been given a ticket on account of this election of Saturday to return for another 4 years, barring litigation and how all of those court processes are likely going to turn out. The question is, has he done much to fight off these unknown gunmen, IPOB, ESN, and so on and so forth?
Well, I do not buy that nomenclature, unknown gunmen. They are known gunmen.
Does the governor know them? Does the government know them?
Well, they are from, like what is happening in Imo State, from my own locality, from my own town, we know the boys. So they are known gunmen. The governor is trying his best. He's a human. He needs the support of everybody. There are people that are sponsoring those boys. Using my own locality as an example, they murdered my traditional ruler. I was to be a victim. I was to be shot together with my traditional ruler on 14 November 2022. We know those boys. Today now, the boys, I don't want to mention the name of the church, has said they were pleading for amnesty for the criminals who burnt down police division, killed policemen, murdered people, buried them, many alive, killed traditional rulers, went into a court where a magistrate was sitting, put him and shot him in his court without provocation. And you say you are pushing for them to be granted amnesty. For what? And the case is in court. Allow the law to take its course.
Have those boys been arrested now?
They are, as I'm talking to you now, they are quartered by a particular religious organization. I don't want to mention the name, but if you permit me, I'll mention the name. That they pleaded for the government to grant them amnesty. For what? let them face the full wrath of the law. Let the law take its course. These are boys that, without provocation, they decided to carry arms against the community, began to perpetrate criminality. If you oppose them perpetrating criminality, they'll kill you. They sacked the whole town. It is unheard of. They are known gunmen, they are not unknown. So let the law take, when they are arrested, let the law take its course.
In the build up to the this election, during the campaign, your governor had gone on records. He went viral, I guess, for the wrong reasons, saying upon re-election he will provide jobs for Imo youth abroad. And people were asking and saying, hold on a second. If you can't do that at home, they say justice begins from the next door. And all of that. So if you can't provide them jobs in Imo State or somewhere around the southeast or somewhere within the country, how then are you going to give them these opportunities beyond the shores of our country? So how did your party and indeed the government do that damage control at that time? Because it was quite damaging, wasn't it?
My answer is that maybe my governor's statement was taken out of context. Maybe what
but the video was viral.
He was taken out of context. That's my response to that. My governor's comment was taken out of context because I know there are programs and policies that are put in place in Imo to create jobs. But insecurity in my state is affecting most of the things. His statement was taken out of context. That's my response to that question.
All right. So the governor has 4 years in front of him going forward now, like I said, barring any disruption, whether legal or otherwise. How does the state intend? I know you're not here to hold brief for the state, but at least you are a member of the APC, and I'm sure you are interested in the success of your state and indeed the region. But let's talk about what the government could do. You are a citizen of Imo State, much as you are a Nigerian, could do to address the issue of insecurity with the likes of people like Simon Ekpa, who are said to be influencing the insecurity, stoking insecurity all the way from out of the continent of Africa.
From Finland.
From Finland, right.
The insecurity in Igbo land, like I said, is
Igbo land, not just
Igbo land, not just Imo, is fueled by Simon Ekpa and his likes. Finland should do Nigeria a favor by bringing Simon Ekpa, extraditing him to Nigeria. Let him come and face.
Do we have that sort of mutual legal assistance?
I should believe we have bilateral relations with Finland. We have bilateral relations with him. Imagine a Finnish citizen staying in Nigeria to be stoking and sponsoring terrorism in Finland. Will Finland be happy? Let Finland assist Nigeria by bringing back Simon Ekpa to face the full wrath of the law. They have destroyed Igbo land. They have destroyed Igbo land. You will sit with someone you can see to discuss and negotiate. But someone that is outside the shores of Nigeria, inciting people against the government, against the populace, it becomes difficult for you to sit with him to negotiate. And we don't know what they are looking for. What are they looking for?
Your governor has been accused of being the mastermind of this insecurity in the southeast. What could have been the basis of that position?
That is the propaganda by the opposition. Is the propaganda by the opposition. After all, before my governor came to power, there was no problem like that. Immediately he emerged, because some boasted that they will make the state ungovernable for him if they are not returned. And that is what we are seeing. So it is the opposition that began to propagate that falsehood. It is a slanderous statement. He has been doing his best to contain the insecurity. But let all hands be on deck. Everybody, all the political actors and leaders in the Southeast, let them tell themselves the truth. Let them be sincere to each other. Those that are sponsoring those boys and to take arms against the state should stop. If you hate my party and you want to do everything to discredit my party, that is the problem.
Upon announcement by INEC yesterday of winner of the Imo State governorship election, your governor, Hope Uzodinma, had gone to church and he said several things. Of course, he thanked the NLC, Imo State chapter, thanked a couple of clerics, thanked those who supported him. Most times when we see a governor, or in some cases even the president, do that, it becomes an indication that they have already marked out those they are going to serve while in office and those that will be at the receiving end, that will receive the brunt. Of course, we know the governor, there's no love lost between your governor and the national leadership of the organized labor, particularly Joe Ajaero, for example. Help us make sense of all of this development, because he's now a governor for all.
He's the governor for all. He's the governor for the state. And he will not go and mention every single individual. It's not possible. It's not, no human can do that. The appreciation and he expressed is composite. It's for everybody.
Right.
The clergy represents a segment of the society. The individuals he mentioned to represent a segment of the society. The institutions he mentioned as well represent a segment of the society. So his appreciation is composite. It's for everybody. It's for the entire state. He's going to serve the state and not in the individuals.
The issues around the labor and the government, the relations between labor and government, are still very frosty. That the governor has won a second term now probably even means that there's more issue to be dealt with than he had seen previously. I mean, where do we go from here with regards to Imo State and the Labour Congress?
Imo State does not have a problem with the Labour Congress. The Nigerian Labour Congress Imo State Council is working with the government. It is Comrade Joe Ajaero, who is NLC president and an indigene of my state and a member of Labour Party that is hiding under NLC.
But the man has denied
he would deny
that he's not a member of the
He would deny. We saw him endorsing the candidate. We saw him in the meetings of the Labour Party and everything. So what else? It was NLC that set up Labour Party. Labour Party is the baby of NLC. So can he divorce himself from Labour Party? No. So he's using NLC to further the needs of Labour Party in my state. Joe Ajaero is the one causing problem in my state. The governor has said, come, let us sit down together and talk. You saw him on one of the TV stations apologizing that, they brutalized you. I didn't know. It was not my government. But he's sorry. My governor has apologized and extended the hand of Olive, Olive Tree. Come, let us talk. Let them sit down and iron out whatever issue there is on a round table. And they resolve the issue, and everybody moves on. But opposing the government, inciting people against the government because you've seen the volatile security situation, and then because some people from from the southeast hate my party, you understand? Then you are cashing in on that passion to instigate them against the government. It will not work. I thank God now that our people are assimilating and accepting our party. And by between now and 2027, my party will make the needed inroad in the southeast and will take over the entire southeast.
And from what you said now probably is the ambition, but that doesn't seem to be the clear picture on the ground. I mean, with regards to internal cohesion within your party, for example, the immediate past governor, Rochas Okorocha, and your governor, we understand don't see eye to eye, and you have other figures across the state within the APC who are not on the same page with your governor on very critical issues. So how then is your party cohesive?
In partisan politics, there is alignment and realignment of forces.
Are they being realigned?
My former governor worked for the success of my present governor in this election. You saw him at the campaign. So there is alignment and realignment of forces. We will disagree to agree. It is common in a human element, especially an institution of power. The institution for power, for taking power, there are bound to be clash of interest. But when we, after clashing, we will sit down, iron out our differences and agree to work together and reconcile. There are bound to be give and take, negotiations. You make concessions so that everybody work together. There's going to be more than cohesion. You understand? You look at more than cohesion in our party as we progress to 2027.
I think it's at this point I want to say a very big thank you for coming to share with us this morning regarding the election in not just your state, but Kogi and of course Bayelsa as well. We hope to talk with you more about these issues as we make progress as a country and with electoral process.
Thank you very much.
We're taking a quick break, everyone. When we return, my colleague and I will look at the papers for you, bring you big headlines, and just give you insights into what the news is saying today. Do stay with us. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
the legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
And thank you for staying with us. We need to look at the papers for you real quick this morning. As expected, most of the papers, perhaps all of them, are flooded with stories regarding elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states. We've spent the last couple of minutes talking about that with my guest this morning. But I want to bring you the papers now so you get a chance to read them up for yourself later. But I'm joined by my colleague, Anthony Momodu, one of our senior anchors here at Global Television. We just want to look at this paper, look at the papers together for you. But Tony, I'd like to say thank you for coming to do this. Deeply appreciated.
Yeah, always my pleasure.
Excellent. So you're going to be seeing more of Tony on the show here, not just Global Morning, but several other of our discussion interactive shows here on Global Television. So we're beginning with The Nation. The Nation newspaper is loaded with stories. And then there is the big one. It says, Imo Kogi governorship polls, Uzodinma Ododo triumph. All right, with two riders just beneath that big story. INEC keeps Bayelsa's leading candidate Diri in suspense. Achonu Ajaka Malaye rejects elections outcome. Inflation rises on soaring food energy prices, but then we need to look at this big story, Tony and I. So, Tony, I understand you couldn't have voted in any of these states. Apparently, you are here in Abuja. But then one thing is clear. Those who lost out in the election are now saying, look, this process was not free, was not fair, was not credible. INEC has got to declare it null and void, in fact, cancel and reconduct fresh elections.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at what Ajaka said, who the SDP candidate in Kogi elections, and what INEC had said as regards 59 polling units for re-elections coming up next Saturday, because the sheets were already filled even before voting started. So Ajaka is saying that this didn't just happen in those 59 polling units, but across the
states.
Yeah, the central Kogi senatorial district.
Right.
So what it means is that he's technically saying the election should be cancelled, because if all the result sheets have been filled before vote, so it means there's something wrong. So if INEC on one hand is saying this happened, and the candidate is saying it happened across board, then we should be able to look at what Ajaka is saying.
Right.
Is there some bit of truth in it? If there is, then there's something faulty about the election. Also look the fact that this happened where the sitting governor and Ododo hails from. Also means there's something fishy there.
So it's suspicious.
It's very, very suspicious, and I think it's something INEC should look into if truly they want Nigeria's democracy to truly grow.
Right. I quite agree with that one. But the good thing is INEC had said just at the weekend that, look, I mean, on their X handle, they said they are looking into this issue because they had also seen the video that went viral about these allegedly forged result sheets. And for someone like Ajaka, many persons are concerned, saying, look, he was a promising candidate going into the election. He was the guy who was going to, in a manner of speaking, give Ododo the bloody nose politically. All right. So he was more like the guy in the spotlight for the APC and indeed for Governor Bello and for Ododo. But now all of those appear to have been overtaken by an event, because apparently INEC has declared a winner in that election. But let's see a few other headlines for you this morning, everyone. Still with regards to the Nation newspaper, but this time a bit of business. Let's see what we do have. But away from politics, it says inflation rises on soaring food, energy prices. And now we understand the World Bank is actually projecting or forecasting a 30% inflation rate for Nigeria by the end of the year. But we want to take a look at stories above the nameplates. 3 of them. Naira to rebound with $34.8 billion diaspora remittances. I mean, you have also followed the dynamics around the foreign exchange segments of the market. How that about a fortnight ago, it had been something in the neighborhood of 1,300 Naira to the US dollar. But then just a couple of days ago before the weekend, it dropped below 1,000 or something in
and recently we have 780 Naira to a dollar.
Right.
So which is a positive
which means the Naira is getting strengthened by the day against the US dollar. Some people have said, well, some of those rates are speculative and so on and so forth. But what I do personally and as a professional is to talk to people on the ground. Those who deal in currencies and those who also buy, maybe because they're into business, they want to order equipment and raw materials from outside of the country and maybe outside of the continent and so on and so forth. But when you look at the whole foreign exchange problem, the FX problem, how bothered have you been? What do you think? I mean, you are somebody with a sound mind in the industry that the government could do to address some of these issues.
I think if you, by August, the inflation rate was at 28.5%. And currently, like the recent, you just read out, the World Bank says, by the end of the year, they're looking at 30%. So it tells you things are not still going well for Nigeria. The fact that we do more of importation, less production, so we're not giving out. So we need to, the manufacturing sector needs to be instigated, you know, as a way to help us balance this. Because for now, yes, the Naira 780 to $1 doing fine, but what's going to happen in a couple of weeks when we have more importations occurring again, and whatever buffer the CBN and the federal government has put in place to help the Naira, you know, jump up again, it's going to fall back. So I think the manufacturing sector needs to be, you know, more funds needs to be put in there. The agricultural sector also, we have to see the African Development Bank do more to support Nigeria as a way. The recent trip by the president for the summit.
The Arab Summit
in
Saudi Arabia.
We hope that that's going to translate into more businesses. We see Saudi Arabia say, okay, they're ready to help the CBN by injecting more foreign exchange into the country. So I think these are all the things we need to do in order for us to, you know, get the Naira and foreign exchange do well. And also on the part of the legislature, talking about National Assembly and our leaders, in terms of expenditure, we have to look at what we import. Because a few months back, we heard about them trying to import SUVs. That's going to drain on our foreign exchange. So those are some of the things we have to curtail if we really want to help our economy grow better and stronger.
I think that's a valid argument to make. But then again, there are people who have blamed the CBN for reversing, or they say lifting the ban on 43 items. That is, I mean, for the most part, we can source and produce these items, manufacture them back at home. Again, that has put pressure on the demand for foreign exchange, which gives a field day to currency speculators and those who are into round tripping, who buy at CBN rates, come back to the autonomous market to sell, and so on and so forth. But manufacturing is key. Some Nigerians say they are now finding reprieve in CBN's, I mean, in the government's, federal government's announcement that the Ajaokuta steel mill, the biggest in the country.
We've always heard that story.
Yes,
but
it's 98% complete.
We've always heard
that sounds like a landmark, doesn't
it? We've heard that several times, even, especially in the last administration. There were times when we thought, okay, next 1 month, 2 months, it's going to kick start. But it never did happen. So lots of people are going to take that with a pinch of salt and wait to see, just like the Dangote refinery. At a point
that was built to take off in July, and this is in November, middle of it.
It never happened. And was it yesterday? It was on the news that Dangote is getting licensed for 300,000 barrels per day. And then just looking at 1.9 million barrels per day. So it tells you that things are not really what they seem to be. So we have to wait to see if this really happens, because one of the promises this current administration did give Nigerians was this hike in fuel prices you're saying it's going to go down once our refineries are put back in shape, and that's what we've been waiting. But if you look at updates from rehabilitation of these refineries, the updates are not really something pleasing or promising.
They're not inspiring.
So it looks like it's going to be a very long one.
I think the good thing is the government has said by end of this year, at least one of them, Port Harcourt refinery in particular, will be up and running 100%. But again, we can't continue to be hypocritical about how we run our economy, how we run our lives as a country of over 200 million human beings, a country where some of the brightest minds across critical sectors in the world come from. I mean, see what Nigerians are doing abroad, whether it's in tech, whether it's in business, whether it's in education and health. I mean, look at the groundbreaking innovations credited to Nigerians. But then we come back home, the story is on the flip. So we hope the government becomes more sincere with the people. We hope the government becomes more resolved. We hope the government becomes more innovative, creative, and of course industrious about how we judiciously use the resources with which God has blessed this nation. But let's move away from the nation now and turn to The Guardian newspaper for you. We begin with the story, which is the big one, right there on the front page. It says, Uzodinma re-elected, Ododo wins Kogi as Diri leads in Bayelsa. So I want us to talk about this. By the way, details of that story are on page 6 of The Guardian. Anthony, I mean, Bayelsa is still hanging. The other two have been resolved. They are in the bag, I'd like to say. But Bayelsa is still hanging because we see that two local governments, including Southern Ijo.
Yes, Southern Ijo.
Yes.
And, we've got Brass.
Yeah, Brass, local government.
Funny enough, that's where Timipre Sira
hails from.
The other Southern Ijo is where his running mate hails from. So it tells you there's something fishy
about those two local governments.
If you barely a month or so before the elections, Timipre Sira wasn't in the good books. INEC had not given him the go-ahead to stand in for the
following the court order.
Following the court order, and most people feel that court order was a very tricky one because he got that judgment in Abuja while he lost it in Bayelsa initially. So it tells you something was amiss there. But the good news is that Diri is already leading out of the 6 local governments that was already announced. I think he had gotten 5.
Right.
So the lead is a very wide margin.
So it's going to take a long day for any other person to catch up.
And you cannot take away the power of incumbency. He's going to have lots of influence on whatever is going to happen. So I think, but it's going to be a very good one for us to see if INEC and the whole electoral process, how sincere they're going to be.
We'll look forward to that. But then a few other headlines here this morning. Tinubu, the challenge of moral leadership. Fuel subsidy, forex liberalization may drive inflation to 30% by December. Anthony and I already told you about that just a while ago. A 45-year-old woman flees with daughters over circumcision rights. And then what more do we have here? Social media regulation bill, gagging free speech or taming monster. We've always talked about this. How do you regulate the internet? But in this case, not just the entire internet, but social media in particular. Anthony, I'm sure you're very active on social media, and now we're talking about the social media regulation bill. Remember, former Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, had raved a lot about social media, how he said Twitter alone would destroy Nigeria if nothing was done. Of course, we understand how Nigeria, Twitter was blocked for banned in this country, and how the federal government had to sit down with the management of Twitter, and then how that ban was lifted. But today we're talking about social media regulation bill. Is that realistic? 23 years into a new millennium.
I think it's going to be very difficult if you look at the fact that everybody has access to the social media, and you cannot completely regulate what people churn in. But to an extent, I think it's possible because if you go to Asia, look like for Vietnam, for instance, I was there for like some few months. I noticed the fact that people cannot just tweet or send things into the social media of their choice. It's heavily regulated. And what it means is that once you do something, you're picked up as fast as you do it. The issue in Nigeria is that it's going to be hard. We don't have that database to say, okay, we can get the addresses of people, their locations and all that. But over there, those things are already well spelled out. So it's easy for them to catch the culprit. For instance, we see in sport where in the stadium, that's why you have 60,000 people there. When somebody makes a monkey chant at a player, that person is easily spotted with cameras and all these other devices. So I think
we don't have that sort of environment.
We don't have that kind of environment. And even if we did, the fact that there's always someone wanting to cut corners, this corruption in the system also is another factor. Because if someone who commits a crime is from a certain part of the country, and the person who is in charge, like the security agent, knows that person is from this side of. There's always a story. For instance, we remember Kerry, who was supposed to be extradited to the U.S. As regards this hush puppy issue. It never happened.
But the government says he had another case to answer here with regards to drugs, and the NDLEA had picked him up.
But you could see that for how many months now, that case just fizzled out. And that's what we see in Nigeria most times.
Of course, it was granted bail recently.
So those are the factors that will make it next impossible.
But the government also has a valid ground for their argument. They say there's so much of hate speech, there's so much of fake news being propagated. So that's what the primarily want to check.
There's need to regulate it to an extent, because there are certain things you see on the internet, you know that this is absolutely wrong. Not just for the sake of the nation, even for our kids, because they're exposed to certain things they shouldn't be exposed to, and so it's only the regulation that can help us sort that menace out.
Okay, so let's move on with our papers this morning, everyone. But this time, Nigeria News Direct is our next port of call. Let's start with headlines above the nameplates. Nigeria to resume production of 275,000. Let's see that for you. Barrel per day as NNPC resolves Pengassan Total Energies rift. Okay, what's more? Aero aircraft crash lands as Abuja Airport runway is shut down. Then the big one, as expected, off-cycle elections. INEC declares Uzodinma winner in Imo with 3 riders. By the way, that story is on page 4 in detail. As APC leads in Kogi, ADC trails behind. INEC unravels manipulation in Kogi, fixes fresh elections in 59 polling units. What's more, Tinubu provided level playing ground in Imo, Kogi, Bayelsa polls, as Governor Sanwo-Olu talking. You know, there was this concern incumbents. I mean, you talked about power of incumbency a while ago. So in Imo and Kogi, in fact, in Bayelsa as well, as far as the states are concerned, there's the element of incumbency. But then there's also the power, the ruling party factor, which is President Bola Tinubu being an APC person, the leader of the party as we know it. And then, of course, he has his boys, so to speak, on the ground running for elections in these three states. Of course, as expected, Kogi and Imo were of particular interest to him. And now, as it stands, INEC has declared that APC won those two states. So now Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State is saying, well, regardless of how it turned out, the president did his beats. He allowed free access. He allowed free reins. He gave latitude to the states to do what, the candidates and their parties to do whatever they wanted to do within the ambit of the law. So he says ultimately the president gave a level playing field.
Well, that's what you expect from Babajide Sanwo-Olu to say. He wouldn't say anything rather than
to the contrary.
To the contrary. But we all know how politics has been in Nigeria. For instance, you take the issue in Kogi State. It was more of like Ododo was sure to win because we had Yaya Bello already anointing him as the successor. And you asked your guest a very interesting question when you asked him if he felt having a successor, that norm, was he right? Was it positive or negative? For me, I think it's negative. Most times when you appoint someone or you want to ensure that someone takes over from you, it's because you're trying to hide something. You need someone to cover your tracks. If he was as clean as he's portraying, he should leave everything to chance and not say, okay, Ododo is the man to win. No, allow the voters, the electorates to decide who should be the next governor. Because from all reports we've gotten in the last 4 years of Yaya Bello's reign, the workers in the state have only, there was this complaint at a point that workers, civil servants were dying, pensions were not paid.
That's in Kogi State.
In Kogi State. So if we take that to the bank to say this was some of the highlights of Yaya Bello's reign, always traveling out of the country, then why would he now be the one to now decide who takes over from him? It should be the people, the electors, to make that decision.
So after all, it's going to be the governor of the people, not the governor of the incumbent governor.
Yeah, and INEC has said in areas where Adahi, Okehi, and Ajokuta, and one other place, these are places where Ododo and Yaya Bello hail from. Those places were where they saw result sheets already filled before elections. So that tells you a lot, and that cannot happen if there seems to be no.
If they had some influences from these vested interests.
So you could tell that Dino Milai this morning on one of the national televisions, they did also accuse Yaya Bello and Cole of trying to instigate some bit of unruliness in certain places because INEC had said when there were hitches in certain places, those results will not be, counted for.
Okay. So they'll be invalidated.
Invalidated. So it tells you there's a lot of things around that. So the power of incumbency definitely is playing out.
Like we keep hearing, democracy is still evolving, but the question is, are we evolving fast enough? Are we just going to continue to be in this phase of evolution? But then I want to look at a different paper for you this morning. This time is the Punch newspaper. Let's see the big story first on the front page of today's Punch. It says PDP LP kick as Uzodinma Ododo win protests in Bayelsa. Uzodinma wins all LGs. Opposition rejects Imo Kogi results. Say no election took place. Diri's supporters protests as Silva wins Nembe with 22,248 votes. APC defends victory in LG, of course. Editor Summit, NGE draws Tinubu Ribadu orders to Uyo. FG aims for 1.9 billion barrel per day, intensifies war against oil theft. I mean, when you talk about economic sabotage, it's in Nigeria, within the context of our own conversation in Nigeria, it is always about oil. Just barely 2 months ago, the NSA and the Minister of State for Oil downstream, Lokobiri, were in the Niger Delta. doing on-the-spot assessment of facilities, production capacity, and so on and so forth. And the NSAD say very categorically that Nigeria at the time was losing 400,000 barrels of oil per day, crude, all right, to thieves, oil thieves, vandals, if you like. And if you do the math, that's a whole lot of oil to lose in a month. And then you're wondering, are the rates, I mean, looking at the price of crude at the international markets, times 400,000 barrels per day. People say, well, this is a matter of conspiracy because those in government know the people behind this. That there are even governors who have become complicit one way or another. But why are we still laying low? Is it a matter of allowing sleeping dogs lie?
I think it's just a simple example is just like this. We see this cattle herders within the FCT taking these cattle in the city center.
Sometimes as close as to the villa, to the presidency.
And the same government says this is not supposed to happen. This is because those who own these cows are up there.
They're powerful people.
And for the oil theft, we're not talking about something you put in your pocket and just smuggle out of the country. We're talking about vessels. It's a huge process.
A barge. Vessels that could take like 2 days to fill.
So, and it's not something that you just sneaks in. It doesn't go so fast that you say, okay, it was hard for the Navy with all the technology. Now comes out up there
in space.
In space. And still yet they cannot find. I think they're just playing politics.
And in one or two cases where they've been able to get these guys arrested, the next thing here is they burned the vessel.
Why?
And why did you burn
the question
evidence?
Is why the evidence?
That's evidence. And that in itself is a crime. I mean, when you destroy evidence.
But the last case where we had that a vessel was burned, we did not hear the military officers prosecuted.
Maybe that's the ultimate goal. So
it tells you
that's a natural death.
Yeah, so it tells you the government itself and those running, there's a cabal doing this and they know what they're doing. So most times when people get arrested, it's probably, maybe these are the younger players who have not played ball with the big boys. So they use them to sample, just to show like, okay, we're doing something about this.
Some sort of public relations.
Yes, and you don't see that, okay, yes, we don't hear at the end of the day, okay, they've been jailed for 10 years, 20 years, no. Just here they've been arrested, that's all. And it ends there.
Interesting. But let's see what it says just above the nameplate of today's issue of the Punch newspaper. It says, Dangote Refinery secures license to refine 300,000 barrel per day crude. VC's Rights FG rejects 40% varsity IGRO deduction. I must tell you, Tony, when I saw this story in the course of last week, I think that was on Friday, I was taken aback. I mean, the federal government now says to VCs, vice chancellors of universities, look, you have to remit 40% of whatever you realize, I mean, by way of internally generated revenue. In the meantime, the universities are saying, one, we need autonomy. Two, we are cash strapped, regardless of whatever you think we realize from what we do. Besides, we now realize for the last, 15, 20 years, universities have now scaled up their enterprise. They are into water business, they are into bakery, they have filling stations, they do consultancy and all sorts. Why are we still talking about being cash strapped?
I think it's very funny because the same universities go on strike. The same ASU at a point you hear go on strike. Like the PP, the payroll issue they had,
the
UTAS and all that, the issue they had. My question is, why would the federal government suddenly want an
40%
tertiary institution to start being a source of generating revenue? That's absurd and that's wrong because these institutions are already crying out they don't have money. They go on strike perpetually every year. And now you want to get as much as 40%. I think is the government being lazy of looking at other ways where they can generate income. Though you could also, on the flip side, you could look at JAM, for instance. JAM has been one of the most lucrative educational institute that has generated a lot of income to the federal government.
Right.
So probably they look at that and they say, okay, they know these institutions actually do make money. So the question is, so if these institutions do make this lot of money before now, how come they usually would hold the country to ransom by going on?
Where does all the money go to?
Yes. So it means somebody has been, siphoning these funds.
It's interesting. Maybe we can bring a bit of, if you like, statistics to these, even though we don't have numbers just yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we know. I mean, I know of a particular federal university in the southern part of the country where you have diploma program, you have some sort of sandwich programs, you have what else? You have part-time programs, you have all sort of intermediary foundational programs, raking in money, and these students in these categories of programs pay way more than the conventional, the regular students, who accounts for all of this money. In fact, there had been a time about some 8-10 years ago that the part-time monies from part-time, for this particular university are shared amongst the deans, the members of senates, and the VC. So it's an internal sharing mechanism. Some internal, if you like, sharing formula that they use for that. So it doesn't even get back to the government. That's not on the books. Maybe the federal government, Ministry of Education at this point, would have to send in, if you like, independent auditors.
I think probably they have done that. That was why they came up with this 40%
disposition.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we want to see our universities do better. That's the point. It's not so much about who gets 1 naira or who gets a kobo. It is having universities that work. It is having universities that can compete with the so-called Ivy League universities across the world. That's the whole idea. And we can't have that until there's transparency. Even though they say our university system is doing better today, but still look at where we are in terms of global ranking of universities. When universities are ranked across the world, of 1,000 of them, you probably don't have more than 2 in Nigeria, maybe 1 private, 1 public. But we can do better than that. What happens to when the university system in Nigeria was sound and robust in the 60s, in the 70s, up to, who knows, maybe mid-80s? We can go back to that time and, who knows, probably do way better than that. But let's just say this is where we're leaving it with the papers this morning, everyone. Anthony, I'd like to say thank you to you for coming to join.
It's a pleasure being on Global Morning.
Great. So as I said a while ago, Anthony is one of our senior anchors here, as well as a newscaster, and you'll be seeing so much of him in the days, weeks, and months ahead, talking to our guests about very salient issues here on several of our programs. But then we've not forgotten so quickly how that we're hearing now from people on the ground, from sometimes even colleagues in the industry, about this one chance phenomenon and the havoc they are wreaking across not just Nigeria, but in this instance, the FCT in particular. Let's join Danjuma Abdullahi, our partner correspondent for this report that takes a look at this crazy phenomenon. And we are Mofwebe, and that's our program for you today.
An apparently peaceful traffic situation can turn into a nightmarish experience with the activities of the popular but ignoble criminals called One Chance. They are violent criminals who disguise as either commercial drivers or as passengers. The trick is to shout, one chance, giving the impression that the vehicle needs only one passenger to move. But jump in and you jump into a pile of miseries. Kabiru Adamu is a security consultant and confirms that this pattern of crime has taken an alarming dimension.
It is a common occurrence in most city centers. In Abuja, as an example, it's very difficult for you to go to any space where there are a couple of persons ranging from 3 up until 10 that you will not find at least 1 to 2 to 3 persons that have not been victims of One Chance, as long as the persons are using commercial vehicles.
So I entered the cab, hailing Pape.
Chidinma is a young mother. She had a terrible and pathetic experience in the hands of the criminals. Chidinma was dropped by her sister right about here at around 8 o'clock in the evening. A Mazda car driven by a man and one other passenger at the back pulled over and hastily picked her. Destination, Mpape. But the journey was doomed because a set of horrible things started happening at the inception of the trip.
Immediately I entered, the passenger by my left, was behaving as if he was collecting his balance from the driver. So I felt comfortable. I guess they did that so that I wouldn't have to notice what was going to go on. So immediately after he collected that balance, the next thing he did was to stretch his hands towards my side, and here was on my neck, while here was trying to stop me from opening the door by my right. So as I tried to open the door by my right, they were shouting, you better cooperate. You know, go cooperate, but you won't die. You won't die this night. She said, go feel come out from this car. She said, go feel come out from this car. They were beating me. The first person that hit me was the man in front. So he punched me with, I don't know whether it was a ring on his finger or a rod. Mainly he punched me. That was when here, the blood started oozing from here. So I was in the pool drinking my blood. Then they now told me, lie down. Okay, lie down. No, go lie down, ba. So I was struggling. They've collected my stuffs. They've collected my bags at that time. I didn't have my bag with me. So they were telling me, no, go lie down, ba. So I thought they wanted to rape me as they were telling me to lie down on the floor of the car. So as I tried to lie down on that floor, the one by my side too now slapped me, and he tried to strangle me too. That was where this marks came out from. So he was strangling me. I was telling me, no, you go die this night. Maybe you no want cooperate. You go die this night. You go die this night.
Chidinma was lucky to escape alive because she did not fit the correct profile of the perfect victim the criminals were searching for their sinister intentions.
By the time they were done beating me, it wasn't like the madam, you know what you go do now? You go cut your breast. I said, okay, sir. He now said, do you have kids? I said, yes, I have kids. He just kept quiet. The next thing I saw was that he told me, okay, oh yeah, get up.
Alone in the night.
This young lady was also lucky because she survived and agreed to share her experience with us.
I've been attacked in this beggar before. I was hit from behind. My phones and everything were collected. And it took me years to be able to stand in beggar and get a car and pick up a cab.
In a daring display of impunity, most of the criminals move around with POS machines for ease of stealing money out of the bank accounts of their victims. Security experts explain that this is very possible, especially with the emergence of new financial outfits who ignore the vigorous security check on customers before opening customer accounts.
A lot of the instances that we've monitored, they actually use the financial systems. Now, the reason for this is commonplace. Number one, we do not have a national database for individuals, Nigerians actually. And more importantly, even the banking system has not put in place infrastructure to reduce the possibility of this from happening. And then secondly, where it happens, to trace the perpetrators, arrest them, and then prevent further crime.
Abuja is Nigeria's seat of government. It is also a bubbling cosmopolitan city that attracts people from every part of Nigeria and even abroad who come mostly in search of economic opportunities. But like many emerging cities facing the challenges of growth, crime has become a major issue. The June 2023 edition of Nigeria Security Report for Beacon Intel, a security consulting firm, shows an increase in crime in not just Abuja but other major Nigerian cities. The FCT Police Command says it is doing its best to fight crime in the territory in order to protect the security and welfare of citizens.
We have created a tactical squad called Anti-One Chance, which they have been charged with the responsibility of these one chance activities to wipe away, in conjunction with the DPOs as well. The DPOs are doing on the divisional level, and this squad that I mentioned, Anti-One Chance, has been deployed also to each division.
The FCT Police Public Relations Officer says the police needs the cooperation of the victims and other citizens in order to tackle this despicable crime called One Chance.
Sometimes these modus, they change their modus, though we've identified the modus they are using. But when they know we identify them, they also change their modus. So when if you find yourself as a victim, it's only wise and advisable that you report these incidences to the security agencies.
I actually did not believe that they could do anything about it. That was why I didn't report to them.
Our law enforcement agents that do not see this crime as a major crime. We've been in instances where we've monitored this development on behalf of our clients. We will report the cases by providing the telephone numbers that were used in the crime, the account numbers that were used in the crime. The response you get from the law enforcement is that they have bigger challenges. And this is the effort they will use in stopping this is not what the benefit.
Victims survive and injuries are treated, but the emotional scar takes a very long time to heal.
It took me months or if not years to actually recover. And psychologically, everything around me now, even if I enter a cab now, I will start to be conscious of where I am because of everybody around me is a suspect.
The one that was repeatedly beating me, I didn't see the one on the front, his face, but the one at the back, I kind of saw his face. So when I see someone that looks like that person, I'll be like, are you sure it's not this man that beat me that night?
Kabiru Adamu says commuters should avoid flagging vehicles along the road. Instead, approved and designated motor parks should be used. Anjum Abdullahi.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies to, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle, the ASIS strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.